Welcome in. It is Big Ten today. It is great to have you with us on this Monday. We are presented by Gatorade. Dave Revson and Rafael Davis with you. Want to let you know we're going to have some news on UCLA football as well as they prepare to come into the Big Ten. The Bruins have made a hire. We'll get some reaction on that. But we're going to start with basketball. And again, home court. It is crazy in the Big Ten this year. Now 7 for 7 this weekend, right?
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, we learned a lot this weekend. I mean, Braden Smith looked like the best player on the floor in that Purdue-IU game. Michigan State got back to that Michigan State toughness. Northwestern won a game with their defense, but then I got a bold prediction. You look at Rutgers, I'm back driving that bus. I took the keys from Andy Katz. They are 5-7 in the league right now, 8 games left. You look at who they have, they could go 6-2. And Rutgers could finish 11-9 in the league, be fighting for a double bye in the Big Ten tournament.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they're a totally different team now with Jeremiah Williams, and defensively, I mean, Cliff Amore was
big time.
Amazing. All right, we'll get into it. Let's dive into all of the results. That is our big story. We had 5 games on Saturday in the league, highlighted by Purdue finishing off a season sweep of Indiana. Michigan State rallied late, took down the Illini, and then Rutgers, as we talked about, pounded Wisconsin. Badgers dropping their 4th straight. Northwestern stayed perfect in conference home games. That was Sunday. They took down Penn State. And Iowa rallied from 20 down to top Minnesota. All right, so let's start with Purdue and Indiana. That was probably the marquee game, if for no other reason than just the nature of the rivalry, and then Purdue's the number 2 team in the country. So anytime they play, it is a big deal. It was close for a while until it wasn't. And then Purdue just poured it on in the second half, turned into a runaway. Zach Edey's always going to steal the headlines, and I think one of the big things people talked about coming out of this game was him banking home a three-pointer. But you mentioned it off the top. I mean, Braden Smith is just at a different level. I mean, he is one of the best point guards in the country.
Sure.
His improvement year over year, which is to be expected going from a freshman to a sophomore. And we saw flashes last year of the fact that he could be really good. But he's just a different guy, Rafael, and it's changed this team.
Yeah, I want to give a little bit of credit to P.J. Thompson because we talk about Purdue and Coach Brantley and how they pump up their big men, how their bigs get better. But you look at P.J. Thompson now on the staff. He was a former point guard for Coach Painter. He and Braden Smith spend a lot of time together in the film room, going over brawl screen stuff, giving them confidence. I was at a Purdue practice earlier in this season, and PJ's telling Braden, you're our best player. You're our guy. You've got to be aggressive. He got the National Player of the Year on his team.
Yeah, so is he telling him that in earshot of Zach Edey? Like, can Zach hear him saying, you're our best player?
They are telling him to be aggressive as it's his team. You get to that right hand, get to that pull-up, and then look for Zach, especially as that point guard coach for PJ. But you look at Braden, just controlling the basketball games, controlling the pace of the game, setting the table for his teammates, understanding when he needs to attack and score, when he needs to find someone. And when other guys don't have it going, you look at Lance Jones and Fletcher Lawyer, they were 2 of 13 from the field. They couldn't buy a bucket. Braden Smith goes and gets 19, and then he does it in multiple ways. It's the assist. He's upped his assist game since the Nebraska loss, lowered his turnovers, but he got 8 rebounds in this game. And you look at Indiana, that's how they're going to win. When that ball goes up, they've got to get some offensive rebounds and some second-point production. With your point guard crashing in, getting 8 defensive rebounds, it's big time. Braden Smith, 100% one of the best point guards in the land.
No doubt, and it is crazy to see him at his size doing that. Like, it's one thing, and this doesn't minimize him at all. Like, but when Ty Rodgers goes and gets 8 rebounds, you're like, all right, well, he's 6'7".
Exactly.
Right? I mean, yes, I know he's nominally your point guard, but he's a great low-post player. For Braden Smith to have done what he's done, I mean, he's just made himself into a player. The Journey feature was incredible, talking about how the strength that he put on. Yeah, I mean, it's really like it's really remarkable, and is a testament to him. What do you make of Indiana? I mean, they got off to a decent start in this game. You know, this is the first time now in 90 years that they've been swept by Purdue in a season and lost both games by at least 20 points. I think, especially in the first half, there were some flashes there, but in the second half, just kind of a non-competitive showing.
Yeah, I think they just ran into a better team, and that happens in college basketball, especially in this rivalry. I've been a part of 2 sweeps by 20 points in this rivalry as well, but you look at how Indiana wins, Khalil Ware, Malik Reneau, they struggled. Purdue followed the game plan perfectly. They were double teaming on time. They were rotating the shooters, guarding who they were supposed to be guarding, leading certain guys open. Because you look at those two big fellas, they got 17 points, but it took them 18 shots to get it. And that's just great defense, a great game plan. One encouraging spot for Indiana, it will be C.J. Gunn off of the bench. C.J. Gunn came in the game, got him 13 points, 3 or 4 from deep, and that's who they kind of expected C.J. to be coming into this season, a guy that can come in the game, give instant offense, make shots from deep. If he can continue that going on throughout the rest of the season, that will definitely help those guys. Mackenzie and Bako, he got his 12 points, but they're just not going to win too many games. Malik Renouf scoring 6 points. He's their guy. You take him out of what they're doing, it just disrupts everything.
And it is really hard without Xavier Johnson. I mean, a veteran leader. I think it's fair to point out that they expected to have him. He's been injured on and off all year, but you get outscored by 12 behind the arc and 12 at the free throw line.
Rebounds,
that's really, really tough to overcome. Michigan State fighting to keep its streak of 25 straight NCAA tournaments alive. This is a huge win over Illinois, and not just a win, but the way that they won. The rally, they really rallied twice. They rallied at the end of the first half to take the lead, and then Illinois wrested control back, and then they got that tremendous finish to the game to win it. It just, again, had to dig deep. The atmosphere was unbelievable in East Lansing. It's an enormous win for the Spartans.
Yeah, that's what college basketball is. How do you finish a half? How can you finish a game? And Michigan State was awesome. You look at two of those guys. I look at their seniors. Their backs against the wall. They may not make a tournament. They need this game. And A.J. Hogarth, Malik Hall, they delivered for Coach Izzo. It was big time. You see Coach Izzo after the game grabbing Tyson Walker by the face, showing the emotion because they needed that game, and those guys played like it. They took care of the basketball, only 6 turnovers. They competed on the glass. It was even there. They got back out in transition. That's Michigan State basketball. 23 points on the break. Their defense was there, dominated the inside, plus 16 there. And I love how Malik Hall went about it. He only took 1 3-pointer in the entire game. 22 points, 7 of 9 from the field. He was attacking the rim. He was getting to his spots. He was finishing through contact. A.J. Hogarth had one of his better games on both ends of the floor. He had 23 and 5 assists, but his defense on Marcus Domask was big time. Took his ball at the half court like he was a little kid, went and scored it. And then at the end of the game, they trying to make a post feed at the 3-point line to Coleman Hawkins. A.J. Hogarth reads it perfectly, gets that steal, goes on to make a play. When those two guys play this way, that's who Michigan State was supposed to be coming into this season.
And you mentioned Malik Hall. I mean, to me, we've talked a lot about the game at Northwestern where he was just completely shut out. And then after that, he went on a really great run. And then the Minnesota game on the road, particularly at the free throw line, 1 of 6 at the free throw line, and it just felt like somehow his confidence had gotten sapped again. He comes back and really plays well in this one when they needed him to, including hitting some clutch free throws down the stretch. So, again, you know, he's one of those guys. First of all, he's been around for a long time. He's a veteran guy. He chose to come back. You can tell that Tom Izzo really likes him and really knows that the potential is there for him to be a great player. But you want to see guys finish their career really well. And so for Malik Hall, I thought that was really important. And, again, a huge win for Michigan State. Are they a bubble team? You know, they're somewhere in that neighborhood. And it's just a huge win for them. What about the Illini? To me, this is the second straight game they didn't finish well. I had the game last weekend in Champaign against Nebraska. The Huskers had a great finish in the end of the second half, I should say, to force the overtime. And once again here, Illinois just kind of fades down the stretch. You're up 8 with 6 minutes to go. Some careless turnovers. What do you make of the inability to finish off these games?
Yeah, I'm watching the game with Coach Beeline, and it just gets stagnant at the end of games. You see that last steal from A.J. Hogarth. Coleman Hawkins is posting up at the 3-point line, and everyone has 10 eyes on that play. Everyone knows it's going there. That's just easy to guard. I mean, it's Terrence Shannon on the wing with the basketball on the left side. 5 Michigan State defenders shifting that way. He's trying to make a play 1-on-5. At the end of games, the last 2 games, it feels like Illinois is playing hero basketball. It's get me the basketball. I'm going to go make a 1-on-1 play. You listen to Coach Beeline. We were talking yesterday, and it's not that much false action going on in their half court. It's not too many cutters. It's not too much movement before someone's attacks. It's a guy coming up, they want 1 or 2 passes, and they're going. And in crunch time, like we talked about, it's not even for everybody. You got to have certain sets to get guys in position, get the basketball moving a few times, and then attack. I think Michigan State, they just locked in them on the half-court offense, and they just couldn't get anything going. It just was too stagnant down the stretch.
Illinois had won 3 in a row prior to that. I mean, we mentioned the collapse I did against Nebraska. I mean, I think it's fair to point out they still managed to win the game in overtime. So I don't think you panic if you're Illinois, but still you look at, hey, you look at the quality of their quad one wins. You know, they have 3 of them. They're not against, you know, world beaters. Like one of them's Ohio State on the road, Florida Atlantic neutral. I mean, these aren't like wins that are going to make people sit up and say, wow. I'm not necessarily saying that winning at Michigan State would do that, but it would certainly have helped, right? I mean, it would reinforce this notion of truly being an elite team. They head home now. They will take on Michigan on Tuesday. Let's check out Rutgers and Wisconsin. To me, this is one of the biggest stories of the weekend. Look, Wisconsin's in a tailspin, and we can talk about them. But Rutgers has completely turned its season around, as you talked about. I mean, they beat the number 11 team in the country by 22 points.
Crazy.
It's their largest win ever in the history of the program against a ranked team. And I mean, like 2 weeks ago, we were doom and gloom with Rutgers. And could they ever score again?
Oh, man.
And I mean, now they annihilated Wisconsin. The defense has been great all year. Like they're the number 2 defensive team in terms of efficiency in the country, behind only Houston, and we know how great Kelvin Sampson's defenses are. But offensively, they're just a totally different team with Jeremiah Williams.
Jeremiah Williams is one word. A dog. He figures it out on the offensive end so well. Even on the defensive end, he helps them. Offensively, he lets those guys get back to their natural position. When he first came into their first game, I was questioning. I was saying they're giving this guy the basketball a lot. He hasn't played all season. He must be dominating in practice for them to have that trust in him, and he definitely has been. The last 3 games, he's been phenomenal. They're on a 3-game winning streak. Think about the game yesterday. He got his 18 points. He can drive off the dribble. He can make a play at the rim, score in the mid-range. He can knock down the open 3. But he also has 7 assists and 5 rebounds. He does a lot of different things. He allows Derek Simpson to kind of go back to that 2-guard position. Derek Simpson didn't shoot it well, but he got him 5 assists, just not even trying to be the playmaker, just playing the game the right way. He helps Cliff Amore on the game as well. Think of Big Cliff. He needs those offensive rebounds, but to get them sometimes, you need a guard that can get to the basket and get those little layups that are going to ricochet off the rim. Cliff was amazing. 13 points, 13 rebounds. 8 blocks.
8 blocks.
Just big time. Because when you have 2 guards like Jeremiah Williams, Derek Simpson, both 6'4", long wingspans, they're getting up on you on the perimeter. They're funneling you right into Big Cliff. I can remember that being a guard in this league, having A.J. Hammonds behind me. I have that confidence to press up. I'm just going to send you back door, run into the big fella. And it got to the point where Wisconsin just stopped driving the ball. They didn't want their shot blocked. So I think Jeremiah does so much. And even you look at a guy, Noah Fernandes, who's lost some minutes since he's come back. Noah Fernandes is a specialist. He's a 3-point shooter. He's not a ball handler, not a playmaker. He's a guy that comes in the game and can make shots, and now he has that role. He doesn't have to worry about guarding the best player on the perimeter, making plays off the bounce. He can come in the game and just shoot the basketball. That's what they need him to do. He goes 5 of 5 from 3. Andre Hyatt goes 3 of 5 from 3. Those guys are back in their role. I mean, this Rutgers team, this is big time because that defense is going to travel everywhere. Now you got a guard that could be all conference in just 11 games. It's just sick.
Last 3 games, they've held their opponents combined under 0.8 points per possession.
Crazy, man.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's just absurd.
It's the 11th team in the country.
Good defense. What do we make of the Badgers? 4 straight losses. Now, I think it's fair to point out 3 of them were on the road, and the home game was against Purdue. So are you necessarily setting off sirens of despair? I don't think you are. However, I do think there are some reasons to be concerned here. What has stood out to you in this stretch?
I just think they haven't gotten much from their guard play. I mean, A.J. Stewart is trying to figure out their offense. He's not as effective as he was early on in the season. I thought they were getting out in transition, running a little bit more. I thought A.J. was making some individual plays a little bit more, running some ball screen. I don't know how comfortable he looks in that swing offense. He's probably never ran this type of offense. It had to be this type of discipline on offense in that way. I think that's kind of hindering him a little bit, making him think too much. Chucky Hepburn didn't give him much yesterday. He ran into a buzzsaw. He and Max Klesmit go 1 of 11 from the field. That just speaks to Rutgers' defense. And then I think one of the bigger things for Wisconsin has been since that Purdue game, Coach Painter made the decision to guard Tyler Wall with Zach Edey and guard Stephen Crowd with their four-man, Strake Kaufman, Wren, and Mason Gillis. Since then, everybody's done it. And I think that's taken away Stephen Crowd's ability to pick and pop, make those certain plays that he can make against a traditional five-man, and that's kind of hurt their offense, and I think they're trying to figure that out.
He has had a rough last 4 games, and then the perimeter scoring just hasn't been there at all, less than 26% from 3 during this streak. They've turned it over more than you would expect them to. They just haven't been characteristic of the team that we saw in this early portion of the season. Again, still a really good resume, 6 quad 1 wins, but just need to get back to their winning ways. I was in Evanston yesterday. I had the game between Northwestern and Penn State. The Wildcats playing their first full game without Ty Berry. It is unclear what his status is going forward. I think they expect to know a little bit more here in the next few days. That being said, I mean, without him offensively, they were almost completely stagnant. What they have done, I mean, it's interesting, like that second half against Nebraska and really the entire game against Penn State has looked a lot more like Northwestern last year than the Northwestern team that has been uber efficient offensively, one of the best shooting teams in the country. I give them credit for being able to change the way that they played, but it is a little concerning given the way that they've won all year.
No, for sure. Yesterday, it was gritty, not pretty. They won that game because of their defense. You look at Brooks and Boo, they both struggle from the field. Boo goes 4-14. Brooks goes 3 of 15 from the field. The ball just could not go in, but they found a way to win because they committed to the defensive end. It did look like last season. It was keep this game close, get the stops we need, and at the end of the game, we just got the best player on the floor, and that's Boo Boo. He made some plays. But, I mean, it was big time. They only had 6 turnovers also. You think about Penn State, how they want to beat you. They want to turn you over. They want to get out in transition. So Northwestern, they took care of the basketball, but then they also dominated the glass. I mean, they had +6 on the glass, 13 offensive rebounds to 18 second chance points. That hasn't really been their strength this season, the glass, but they're able to flip it because when you can't score like they struggled in the half court, you got to find ways to steal some points. 18 second chance points, they were big time because you look at the box score, you look at those rebounds, you look at the lower turnovers. Northwestern had 15 more shots than Penn State, and that just comes down. That's the game right there.
Yeah, and you think about the game in State College, which Northwestern was fortunate to win, but they turned it over 18 times in that game. So to only turn it over 6 times is enormous. And Chris Collins said in the postgame news conference, I think in a lot of ways is our biggest win of the year. And I think what he meant by that was, hey, Ty Berry's a huge part of what they do. He's having a fabulous year. And you really hope that he'll be able to come back and contribute to this team. They had a totally different lineup, right? When you're such a different team with Martinelli in there, and they played to his strengths, right? They got on the offensive glass, which is an area that he's really good. So again, give them a ton of credit for figuring out a way to bounce back against a team that was red hot in Penn State. And Penn State's pretty good.
Yeah, and it shows Northwestern that they can win in multiple ways. It doesn't have to be pretty offensively. They don't have to make a ton of threes. They can grind out a game and win it in tough environments. And you look for Penn State. Ace Baldwin had a great game, 17 and 8. Nick Kern got going. But when they don't have great guard production outside of Ace Baldwin, they struggle. DeMarco Dunn had been playing really well coming into this game. And that's where I give guys like Ryan Langborg, Brooks Barnheiser, because without Ty Berry, one of those guys had to step up and keep DeMarco Dunn in front. Those guys were able to do it. And keeping the basketball in front of them for Northwestern, especially without Chase Audige from last season, is going to be big time going into March, especially when you get against those teams from other conferences with quick little guards that can dribble right around you.
And they completely shut down Kanye Clary, who's still kind of finding his way back from his injury. Michigan State at home on Wednesday for Penn State. Pretty interesting game, one we'll have here on the Big Ten Network. Back on Big Ten today, Iowa rallying from 20 points down in the second half to top Minnesota yesterday. Carver Hawkeye, Patrick McCaffrey, Peyton Sanford, both great down the stretch for the Hawks. It marked the 4th largest come-from-behind win of all time for the Hawkeyes, who are now 6-7 in the conference. I think it's fair to point out the comeback coincided with Dawson Garcia going down with an injury. It was a really tough blow for Minnesota, but in no way does that diminish what Iowa did. I mean, it just kind of felt like I don't want to overstate. I don't want to say it saved the season, but
it's big time.
But it's a huge win. I mean, it's just the kind of game that if you're going to do something, if you're going to be a team which competes to be in the postseason, you kind of have to win and to figure out a way to do it and to do it as impressively as they did in the second half. And they scored on 80% of their possessions in the second half. Like, that's just crazy.
Yeah, and I love what Coach McCaffrey did in the second half. One, he got on those guys at halftime and told them guys they got to defend better. They gave up 51 in that first half, and that's just not good defense. That's not Iowa basketball. Although they've struggled to defend, they didn't even look like they were trying at times in that first half. In that second half, they got that figured out. I know Dawson Garcia went down. You look at Elijah Hawkins, he had some foul trouble, but it's not Iowa's fault. They figured it out defensively, held Minnesota to 38% from the field, and then offensively. I love what Coach decided to do in that second half. He went small. He put Owen Freeman in there at the 5, and then he went with Patrick McCaffrey and also Peyton Sanford, Josh Dix, and Tony Perkins, and that allowed space. That allowed those guys to get up and down. Patrick McCaffrey had a brilliant second half, 14 of his 21 points in the second half, and shout out to Patrick because he's went through a lot. He's had some struggles. He's battled. He's fought through it, and he was big time. Like you said, it probably saved their chances for any type of life for postseason, and that's what you need your seniors to do. You need your leaders to step up in big moments. Peyton Sanford got going. Tony Perkins got going. Owen Freeman was tremendous in that first half. He ended up with 17 points, 14 rebounds, 7 offensive rebounds. And going into the game, I was questioning, could it be Cam Christie, freshman of the year, John Blackwell, Owen Freeman? And Owen Freeman is the freshman of the year. He's your freshman of the year. Just a big-time second-half performance.
He's been outstanding, really, from the word go. I mean, winning seemingly every week, Big Ten Freshman of the Week honors. I'm with you on Patrick McCaffrey. I want to echo that sentiment. He's such an easy guy to root for. He's been through a ton in his life. And then even this year, I mean, just being banged up and come back out and be a part of really a historic comeback for this team. What about Minnesota? They had won 3 straight. They're really playing well. This kind of feels like a little bit of the next frontier is winning games like this, holding on to the lead. It's a tough blow for them, but we'll see how they figure out a way to bounce back here. A team that no one wants to play right now.
Oh yeah, no, they just had a small stretch in that second half. Dawson Garcia went down with that injury. Elijah Hawkins picked up his 3rd foul, and the basketball just stopped moving. They just couldn't score. It was Cam Christie, make a basket, make a play for us, and that just didn't happen in that second half. Elijah Hawkins, he makes them go. Dawson Garcia was balling in that game. He had 18 points before the injury, couldn't come back into the game. Those 2 guys were the reason they were ahead. If you don't have one or the other on the floor at any given time for Minnesota, they're just going to struggle defensively. And then when Iowa, when they get going in that arena, when they're running up and down, when you got Patrick making shots, making plays, they're just going to be tough to beat. Because also, I just want to give one more shout out to Patrick. He lost minutes behind Ben Krikke, especially when you put Josh Dix in the starting lineup. So to be able to have the mental fortitude to stay engaged, coach goes with a different lineup, I'm ready to be called. It just was a big-time moment because Minnesota, they didn't have a guy to guard him. You look at their 4 men without Dawson Garcia on the floor. I love Parker Fox, plays hard, but he just couldn't check Patrick McCaffrey. Patrick McCaffrey was a big reason in this one.
Missed opportunity, no doubt, for Minnesota's Quad 1 opportunity. They still have 4 Quad 1 road games left. See if they can grab 1 or 2 of those and keep themselves in the discussion for the NCAA tournament. Ohio State ended its 5-game skid. It was a wild game, a double overtime win against Maryland. And Bruce Thornton, man, every time they needed a big bucket, Bruce Thornton was there.
I mean, that 3 he hit was big time. Bruce Thornton had been struggling. So, again, a guy with some toughness, some mental toughness. Coach had been on him. Bruce, you got to be better. We got to win some games. 2-year point guard, a captain on the team. He had 24 points, 7 rebounds, 4 assists, and made every big shot down the stretch. But then also he had to take the challenge to defend Jameer Young, one of the better point guards in the country, one of the better scorers in America. Jameer got his 26 points, which is great, but he took 22 shots to get there. I thought this was Ohio State's best defensive performance all season long because that's where they've been struggling. I think Ohio State needed to win a game where they did not shoot the ball well from deep. They went 4-17 from 3, but they found a way to win because they took care of the basketball, they dominated the paint, and then they made their free throws. 17 to 20 from the free throw line. That was big time.
They just needed to win a game.
Exactly.
It didn't matter if they shot well from 3 or terrible from 3 or didn't try 3 the whole game. They just need a win. Tough loss for Maryland. 3 straight losses for them. Offense remains a struggle, and it's a game they led for more than 36 minutes. It's a tough game to lose. Nebraska, do want to talk quickly about them. kind of needed a bounce back. They had that really tough back-to-back road stretch. I mean, you go to Illinois and Northwestern, two places that are really tough for road teams to win. You come home, you're facing a Michigan team that was feeling good about themselves, right? Coming off one of their best showings of the year. And they just obliterated.
From the jump. It was 22-7. So the Michigan came in feeling good, and then they felt bad real quick because Nebraska jumped all over him. I mean, that's what you want in your team. For Coach Hoiberg, that's how you want your team to respond in the game that you got to have at home. I love how he switched up the lineup. He just went with his best 5 players. He went with a big lineup. Casey Tominaga was their point guard. Bryce Williams kind of did it by committee because Josiah Alec and Juwan Gary playing at the same time is big time. I mean, they compete on the glass. Josiah gets you 16 and 8. I thought that was huge. And in that first half, Casey Tominaga let every frustration he had about Boo Booey and Ty Berry doing his celebration out. He had 19 in the game, but he had 15 in that first half, and you felt every single basket. He was a huge reason. And I think for Nebraska, a big thing that happened in that second half, although they were up big already, they got Bryce Williams going again. He's a guy that can really score the basketball. He had 13 in the game, but 11 in that second half. They needed him to get back on track.
They are still perfect at home in conference play. Nebraska is. They got a week off before they host Penn State. Future Big Ten member UCLA has chosen the man to lead its football program into the conference. It is DeShaun Foster, the former All-American running back at the school, NFL vet. He had been on Chip Kelly's staff as the running backs coach since 2017. Had actually left 10 days ago to head to the NFL as part of the Raiders staff, but now he is back as the head coach. The details on Foster, Southern California native, went to high school in Orange County, the USA Today National High School Player of the Year. Great career with the Bruins, 2 different seasons, over 1,000 rushing yards, chosen by Carolina in the second round of the NFL draft. In addition to working with Chip Kelly, also spent a year on Cliff Kingsbury's staff at Texas Tech. Fox Sports' Bruce Feldman joins us now to shed a little light on this hire. And let's just start here, Bruce. Are you surprised by the hire of DeShaun Foster?
I'm surprised. Like, we knew he was a candidate, but I'm surprised ultimately that he ended up with the job for this reason. I'm told before DeShaun left to go to the Raiders, he had dinner with Martin Jarman, the AD, and it wasn't a shock that Chip Kelly might leave or might not be the head coach. And I understand it was like that topic was broached about, hey, would I have a chance to be the next head coach? And from what I'm told, Martin Jarman was pretty candid. It was like, look, I'd really prefer somebody who has head coaching experience. And DeShaun not only didn't have head coaching experience, but he hadn't been a coordinator. So in that sense, he was fighting an uphill battle. On the other sense, and why I was told he was a legit candidate, is because he is really well respected by the players and the rest of the staff. And keep in mind, right before Chip Kelly left, he pushed for all of his assistants to get new 2-year deals this winter. So whoever took over was probably going to be inheriting that staff, because it's not like UCLA has Texas A&M money that they're throwing around. So in that regard, it's the timing was tricky, but he was a legit candidate because of how people feel about him. And as one of the assistants told me this morning, it was like DeShaun had the pulse of the team and the pulse of the locker room. He knows how to lead, he knows how to motivate, and he knows how to solve issues. And I think as a head coach, that ultimately can be a lot more important than whether you're a great play caller.
Hey, help Big Ten fans understand what's going on with UCLA football right now. I mean, Chip Kelly is a huge name, as we know, incredibly well respected as an offensive innovator. Was a little up and down during his time there, and then he chooses to leave and was pretty open, right, about searching for other jobs, ends up going to Ohio State, so he'll be in the Big Ten as their offensive coordinator. I mean, I think on the surface seems like a little bit of a strange move to people to leave a head coaching job at a place that's had a lot of success historically to become a coordinator. We had the recruiting show last week. They were dead last in recruiting out of 18, according to 247 Sports. Like, what's happening here? Why is UCLA football in this spot?
I think the job Chip Kelly took 6 years ago was not really the practicality of the job he was doing, meaning NIL changed everything, especially for UCLA. And it wasn't like a case where they had much of an NIL war chest. They were losing recruits who, whenever it would come to money, they didn't have really anything. And when I say they didn't have anything, there are schools that that UCLA is recruiting against and competing against that are going to be in the same conference, that their NIL war chest is in the 8 figures. I'm told UCLA's wasn't even in the 7 figures of what it was dealing with. So I think that was an uphill battle. I think a big part of the job is going to be really not exactly being the, coaching ball, but it's going to be engaging boosters and donors and doing all of that to try to get the NIL thing ramped up to something, because right now it's really not. And I know this, Chip Kelly became the quarterback coach for UCLA's bowl game because his quarterback coach took an OC job at Oregon State. And he was very hands-on with the quarterbacks. And I think a lot of the, everybody kind of noticed he really liked it. He was coaching him. He's already a play caller anyway, but I think the idea of running the room and being hands-on with the room kind of, ignited a little more of a fire in him in that regard. And he was like, yeah, I love doing that. And so I think going to Ohio State, where he works for, a longtime friend who he grew up a mile from in Manchester, New Hampshire, that made a ton of sense for him. Obviously, he's taken a big pay cut to do it. And then I think on the UCLA side, like I said, they are right now so far down on the NIL front that it is a battle. I mean, they do have some good players in the program that they developed. And I think I think anybody who's been around the program knows they have a good culture in the locker room. It's just when it came to recruiting, they could not compete with most of the other teams when it came to anybody who talked money with them. They just didn't have anything to really counter with.
Interesting stuff. We'll obviously see where this heads now moving forward. But DeShaun Foster, the new head coach at UCLA. Bruce, appreciate you joining us on short notice. That news conference introducing DeShaun Foster tomorrow, 2 p.m. Eastern time here on the Big Ten Network. Talk to you soon, Bruce.
Thanks, Dave. Great seeing you.
Major upset in Lincoln yesterday. Nebraska outscored Iowa 27-10 in the final quarter to hand the Hawks just their 3rd loss of the year. It tied for the highest-ranked team the Huskers have ever beaten in school history. They held Iowa to just 4 field goals in the final 10 minutes. Caitlin Clark had 31, but she went 0 for 6 in that stretch. Jazz Shelley, 23 for Nebraska, including the go-ahead 3. Shimmy Gray-Miller is here. Let's talk first about what this means for Nebraska. I mean, it's pretty interesting, right? Because when you're playing Iowa, especially right now, you have the spotlight to yourself in women's college basketball. And to use that spotlight to your advantage when you're on the bubble, when you're building your fan base, which is great, but this is your first sellout in Pinnacle Bank Arena. Like, what does this mean for Nebraska?
Everything that you just mentioned, Dave. Like, let's talk about the fact that Nebraska, they are on the bubble. Like, this is a team, they just lost to Rutgers at home at Pinnacle Bank Arena. That's a really tough loss. I mean, that's a bad loss for a team that's trying to get into the NCAA tournament. So you know what you do to counter that? You go out and you beat the number 2 team in the country. That's what you do. And as far as like the arena and the sellout, I mean, we saw the crowds lined up hours before the game. I coached at Nebraska for 3 years. We won a Big Ten championship, coached an All-American. You might have heard of her, Jordan Hooper, Big Ten Player of the Year. We had some great teams during my time at Nebraska. We had some great crowds. We never sold out. So let's be real. Like, those people were there to see greatness, to see Caitlin Clark with the hopes that she would break the record and make history on that day. So for Nebraska to use that to their advantage, to use that crowd, that atmosphere, that environment to their advantage, I mean, I'm so happy for Amy Williams because it's a great win. And it's not just good for Nebraska, it's good for our league because we need Nebraska in the NCAA tournament. Right,
it's such a cool story with Amy Williams who played there and the program means so much to her. I guess the next natural question is how? Like, how do you shut down Iowa the way they did in that 4th quarter? I mean, 27-10, that's not an accident. You do something really great. What did they do?
Well, it was what they did in the 4th quarter defensively. So Iowa, Caitlin Clark, they've seen every kind of defense, Dave. They've seen all the junk defenses. They've seen the box and ones, the triangle and twos. So what Nebraska did is they did all that, but they did it in the 4th quarter. They waited until the 4th quarter. What you just saw right there was a triangle 2 where they put Natalie Potts, the long freshman, on Kate Martin, and then they mixed up Moriarty and Jasmine Shelley on Caitlin Clark to give them different looks. Here, if you could see 5 Nebraska players, this is one of the few baskets that Iowa actually scored in the fourth quarter. 5 Nebraska players are swarming to Caitlin. She finds Kate Martin. And then here on that last possession right there, that was a really good job by Jasmine Shelley of face guarding Caitlin, making it really hard for her to get the catch. She had to work so hard to get the catch that by the time she caught the ball, she didn't just have enough power to get it up over Jasmine. It was just really good defense. And by that point, that's a shot that Caitlin makes 9 out of 10 times.
It feels that way, right? Like you're watching and you think, well, she's going to bail them out here. But even the great ones, right?
Credit to Amy Williams and her coaching staff, because it's like I said, they waited until the fourth quarter to hit Iowa with all that junk defense. It didn't allow Iowa time to make adjustments to it as the game was going on.
So let's talk about Clark. You have to talk about her. She is the story in women's college basketball. She might be the biggest story in college basketball right now. 31 points. Remember, she needed 39 to get to the all-time NCAA scoring record. So she's now 8 away from passing Kelsey Plum. She was 2 rebounds shy of a triple-double. She had 10 assists. I mean, she's still in a really good game, right?
She had 31 points.
31
she
points,
had 31
right?
points,
yes.
you know?
Okay, so they have Michigan at home on Thursday. One of the things that's blown me away, there's so many things that blow me away about her. The biggest one is her skill. It's just incredible. Right. But the way that she handles it, and I really thought in the post-game news conference, she said, hey, there's no reason to freak out. Right? Good teams lose games to good teams. That was what happened here. What do you expect here coming up Thursday against Michigan?
Oh, I expect her to get the 8 points and break the NCAA scoring record probably in the first quarter.
Right.
You know, to be honest with you. I mean, she still had 31 points. I mean, let's put that into perspective. And also, and here's another reason why all that junk defense that Nebraska played was so effective is, let's not forget, Iowa didn't really have Molly Davis. You know, Molly Davis only played 2 minutes. Lisa Bluter came out publicly and said she's been battling an illness, so she only played 2 minutes. And that you know, it didn't help Iowa by any means. But I expect Caitlin Clark to break the record and to get it early. Yeah. But you talk about what she's done. I talk about how she's done it. We can all look at the highlights and see what she's doing, the logo threes and, you know, and all that. But I'm taking a look at the big picture of how she's been able to handle this pressure, how she's been able to mature, how she's been able to night in and night out with all eyes on her. And I think about that famous video of Matt Barnes taunting Kobe Bryant on the end line. He's flicking the ball in his face and Kobe doesn't flinch. And that's what I think about when I think of Caitlin Clark, except it's not Matt Barnes and the ball. The ball represents all the pressure, the expectation, the crowds, the attention, and she's not flinching. She's not flinching. You know, she's taking it in stride, taking it game by game. She's handling this very mature, and I think her mental toughness is what separates her from everyone else.
I'm blown away by how she has handled it. Just absolutely blown away. I mean, you see the videos, like these wide shots of her going to the media room, and there's cameras being held over people's heads. I mean, it's the Beatles, right? I mean, it's like the Beatles or the Jordan Bulls or whatever it is. Like, it couldn't be bigger. The fact that she's in town, it couldn't be bigger. And she handles it with such grace and of course, is an amazing, amazing player.
22 years old.
Yeah, I know. It's incredible. It is time to go around the Big Ten. Let's start with the Chiefs' thrilling overtime win in the Super Bowl yesterday. It made Super Bowl champs out of 7 Big Ten players. Rutgers' Isaiah Pacheco ran for 59 yards. How about Nick Allegretti starting the last 2 games due to injury in front of him? He was great on the offensive line. Leo Chanel, George Karlaftis among those coming up big defensively. Congratulations to all of the Super Bowl champs. On the mat, top-ranked Penn State took care of business against rival Iowa 29-6. The Nittany Lions won 8 of the 10 matches, including 5 major decisions. They are 9-0 on the season. And Penn State is back in action tonight. Shane Sparks said it might be the best college wrestling team ever. Number 1 ranked Nittany Lions battling Rutgers in the top 15 showdown. Big Ten Wrestling presented by Cliff Keen Athletics, 7 Eastern, only on the Big Ten Network and the Fox Sports app. Back to women's hoops. Congratulations to Mackenzie Holmes. Became Indiana's all-time scoring leader yesterday. 17 points as the Hoosiers pounded Purdue 95-62. She passes Tyra Buss on the all-time list in Bloomington. Hoosiers playing well, winners of 6 of 7. Shimmy, what do you take from the performance against Purdue?
Well, first of all, congratulations to Mackenzie Holmes. You know, I have a special place in my heart for post players. You know, some people might say, well, she did take a 5th year and Tyra only had 4. No, because Tyra shoots 3s and Mackenzie doesn't. So it offsets. It's a total offset there. But congratulations to Mackenzie and Iowa, really, or I'm sorry, Indiana. They played so well against Purdue. It's a big game. It's a rivalry game. You're always going to get your best from Purdue in those games, as we saw earlier this season. But it was the balanced scoring for Indiana. Indiana has to have 4 to 5 players in double digits every night. They are missing Sydney Parrish. That's a huge chunk of points and also leadership. So they have got to have that type of production because this isn't the defensive Indiana team that we're used to seeing. So they're going to have to outscore people moving forward.
Got a couple games and then their rematch with Iowa 10 days from now. They got pounded in Iowa City. Obviously, they will be focused and ready for the Hawks. I think people almost forget because of all the attention that Iowa is getting, that Ohio State is the first place team in the Big Ten right now. And the final score was a little bit deceptive against Michigan State. They led by 28 after 3 quarters. The Spartans had a really good 4th quarter and made the final a little more respectable. But man, Ohio State, when they get going, is something else.
Well, the new rankings just came out, and Ohio State has moved up after this big win on the road. You've got to do a few things if you're going to win on the road. You've got to make your free throws, and Ohio State did that. They were 10 of 11 from the free throw. And you've got to rebound. Ohio State was +6 against Michigan State on the glass. But the other thing that Ohio State did that really stood out to me is they were so selfless. They moved the ball really well. They actually took a page out of Michigan State's book because this is what Michigan State is known for, their great assist percentage. Ohio State had a season-high 28 assists against Michigan State. Just very unselfish. They had 4 players in double digits, led by Celeste Taylor, who had her highest scoring game of the season. So Ohio State, I like the way they're playing right now. I like the way their seniors are playing right now. This is a very senior-led team. I like Ohio State looks good.
Yeah, awfully good. Still haven't lost this calendar year, so I'd say that's pretty good. Hey, how about Maryland? I mean, they are squarely on the tournament bubble, and this is a team that, as we know, is there year in and year out under Brenda Freeze. Went to Champaign. That is not an easy game. Illinois is kind of a solid middle-of-the-pack team in this league, and Maryland goes on the road and gets a win. What did you take from it?
I just feel like Maryland right now, every game they play, they have to win. They have very little margin of error. And I think Brenda Freeze knows that. Now, I'm not saying that they're playing with this insurmountable pressure or that they're playing tight by any means. They know it. I mean, they know it. I mean, even Cheyenne Sellers in her post-game interview, she said, you know, we need to win this game. And this was the Maryland team that people are used to seeing. So Maryland right now, this was an opportunity for them to pick up a quad 1 win. Yeah. Illinois has, regardless of their record, Illinois is top 50 in the net. So this was a great win for Maryland. One more notch in their tournament resume belt that they're carrying around with them. But I just really like the play of Lavender Briggs and Jakia Turner-Brown. So Lavender Briggs is a 1,000-point scorer, Dave. She transferred from Florida, where she averaged 19 points, you know, at the University of Florida. And I think Maryland fans, we've all been waiting to see Lavender Briggs of old and how she's fit into this Maryland team. I think we're starting to see that of late. Same thing with Jakia Turner-Brown, an All-American transfer from NC State, had big expectations on her coming in. I think they are finally starting to feel their role, get comfortable, which is great. Maryland is peaking at the right time.
3 of their last 5 at home. That includes a game against Penn State coming up next Sunday. A team, again, that has made 12 straight NCAA tourneys and fighting to get in this year. You alluded to it, Shimmy. How about Ohio State, now number 2 in the conference, up 3 spots behind only South Carolina. They are, as you can see, a couple spots ahead of Iowa. The Hawkeyes did fall, I should say, 2 spots after that loss to Nebraska. We got future members, UCLA and USC, both in the top 10, and Indiana holding steady at 14 with Nebraska and Michigan State both getting votes. What stands out to you as you look at that poll?
Just how good the Big Ten is.
I know.
This conference.
How good it's going to be a year from now,
too.
Huh?
Last year, there were a lot of historic highs for the Big Ten women's basketball, and I didn't know how much better it could get. Well, this year is proving that even better than we were last year. It's a great conference.
Yeah, you know, it feels like this year we're on the Caitlin watch, and next year we'll be on the Juju watch.
Hey, I'm here for it, Dave.
I know, great stuff. Shimmy, this is a ton of fun. Thanks so much for watching. We will see you tomorrow on Big Ten Today.